Okay, we are about to start. Good evening, everyone. I can see Olufemi, I can see Sama, I can see Taya. So, and a whole lot of others that will be joining us very soon. So my name is Johnson Nwala, and today, 25th of May, 2023, we'll be sharing some basic information about how to pass a NEBOSH examination. Okay, so we'll be discussing extensively on practical guides on how people, what you need to do to pass this examination. Many people have passed it in the past, and but unfortunately, many also have failed this exam because of basic information that they lack. So we're using this opportunity to enlighten people on what they need to do to pass the exam effortlessly. So without wasting much time, I will call on my brother and my colleague, Mr. Stephen Francis, to commence the presentation. Myself and Olufemi will come in between the presentation to add one or two points. So, Francis, over to you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. At least based on demand, that is why we are trying to repeat this presentation, because we did it some time ago, some weeks back, and basically it is very important as a young professional, or even those who have been practicing in the field and who are yet to get their NEBOSH, because we have a lot of professionals who, by virtue of being too relaxed, to have acquired their NEBOSH, but very few, but some are still struggling to. So, which I believe this opportunity will be really relevant for them to be able to apply what we are going to be giving out today, to be able to excel if they intend to sit for the exams. So, like we said previously, strategy simply means where one needs to focus his or her efforts, in achieving your set goals, or succeeding in a particular goal or target, whichever way you put it. Okay. So, and in another definition, it's a specific plan of action that will take you from where you are at the moment to where you want to be. So, based on that, I've been able to come out with a kind of strategic model, which, if we take one after the other, I believe at the end of the day, one is going to succeed, after sitting for the exams, and I'm going to be speaking based on experience and expert advice. Okay, so basically, the model I came up with is, it's number one has to do with study and revision. 2 has to do with setting of your examination environment. 3 is set and execute your action plan. And the 4th one is avoid emergencies. And the 5th one is you must attend the closing interview after the written exams. So I'll be pouring more light on it, of each and every one of these point of strategy. Like basically, if you look at the screen, what I've come up with here, we are talking about study and revision. It is very important and fundamental that the first step or the first strategy is for you to study, except you don't want to write the exams yourself. Okay, but in as much you want to write the exam, you must study. Okay, your study and revision will give you the fundamentals, about the elements that are involved, because we have about the IG1 has to do with between element 1 to 4, while the IG2 has to do from 5 to the other element. So the focus is that you should be able to understand what you are going in for in the first place. Because even if you want to use other point of the strategy to succeed, without you understanding the fundamental of what you are going in for, I don't think one will be able to succeed through. Okay, so if you look from my slide, I've said it. When we talk about study and revision, you have to lay hand on your study materials. You have to make sure you go through them very well. You need to focus and familiarize yourself with terminologies that are used. It is very, very important. Because if you are to use the word accident and you're not using the word accident, you're using another English definition, meaning of accident, it's not going to fetch you anything. Because in the NEBOSH marking scheme, you will not see another word except accident or things like that. So because this is a more professional exam, so the terminology that are relevant to the profession must be used, okay? And it's also advisable to go through some past question, OBE past questions and answer sheet, and see the trend of how this scenario comes, how they look like, okay? Now that is that of study and revision. Now, when we talk about setting the environment, setting your examination environment, see, it is very vital and important for us to understand that an environment that is not properly set, that is not friendly in terms of ergonomically design, okay, when you sit for 1-2 hours, you get tired. And once you are tired as a result of stress, your brain will not be able to function, you will lose focus. So basically, all these things are very, very important and will look that are not relevant, but they are so much relevant for you to have focus, to have conducive environment, to be able to assimilate and think properly. So when we look at it, when we talk about environment, we need to consider the ventilation. We have to consider that that environment is not too hot or neither is it cold. Okay, we have to ensure that this environment is free from distraction, especially noise, TV, you know, a lot of things, you know, get distracted by going through social medias and all that. So those things are very, very important. We need to make sure that the environment is set and have all your materials, the hard copy materials you need for the examination, you have them close by to you so that you don't start searching, going to your bag, going to your shelf and all that to sort out all those things. So now when we look at the step 3, which I said, set and execute an action plan, I think this is where more focus will be, because this is where the exam itself, this is where you start writing your examination, you know, and like we said previously, it is recommended, okay, to print the question, because going through it on the system, you strain your eye, to stress you because you're going to be spending hours writing this exam on the system. So it's better for you to have it printed, you know, and go through it, study it as many times as possible. If it will take you to read it 10 times, then I think if that is the best you can go, that is good for you, because we have individual factors. You know, some people, they can read something for once, they are good to go. Some will read it 3, 4, 5 times before they're able to assimilate and get it. So because you'll be going back to it to get some information, so it is just better for it to be printed. Okay, so now when you go through the scenario, you focus on the terminology, like I've said. They are very important. In the scenario, there are words, there are terminologies that are used in that scenario. You cannot throw it out. You cannot throw it into the basket. It is very important that such terminologies are replicated in your answer, because that is how you get the mark. Because in some situation, you discover that the person might not even be making sense with the answers. But the truth is that that terminology that you've put inside, that you've written down, has given you your mark. That is one secret. Okay, so sometimes, because NEBOSH is not concerned about your grammar, they are not interested in the way you construct your English, you know, but those words that needs to be there are there. And once the times are there, it's also in their marking scheme, then the person will get his mark at that point, irrespective of so many things that you've written down. Okay, so now, like the next point here, talking about underline the keyword and concepts, technical points. The same things when we talk about terminology and all that. So if in the scenario, the focus is there's an accident that occurs. So these are things, these are technical points, these are technical words that you can't throw away. You know, you need to put them, you need to rally around them within the scenario and know how to fashion out your points. And one of the things I said earlier then was that you need to write your answer. You start it with the easiest question. One of our colleagues that came on board last time, he put it in this way, that your strengths, you need to identify your strength and your weakness, okay? In terms of the question, when you look at the question, you should be able to know which particular question you have strength in attending to, okay? That when you attend to those questions, you can vouch for yourself that, yes, out of the 10 mark here, you can vouch that, okay, I can get up to 8 or 9 or even that 10 points, okay? So those are the secrets. You don't start with the question that you have a weaker, you are very weak in. Because if you start with that one, you discover that you can spend 3 hours on one question. You're trying to battle it because that is not where your strength lies. So you need to focus. You need to look at the question, okay, this is my strength question. I start with this one. So because when you start with it, you discover that every other one will become more easier for you, okay? So then in terms of writing, it should be in a sequence according to the scenario. You don't just, because there are some situations whereby you discover that some students, when they write this exam, you discover that because it's very, very dicey. Maybe they ask a question 1 and they ask another question in question 2. You discover that sometimes most of the answers some people are putting in question 2 as answer is what is supposed to be is supposed to be question 1 answer, because they don't really understand the way it's supposed to be sequenced when it comes to the answer. So more focus should be on that, okay? And also, like I always say, it is advisable to present this answer in a bullet point. You don't write your answer in an essay format. You write and write and write and write. In fact, even the examiner will get bored, you know. So, but when you make it a bullet point, you make it bullet points, or you number it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this, it will be interesting for the examiner to mark, and it will be even more easier for the examiner to identify your points, you know, because if you write in essay format, the examiner, you are putting the examiner into pressure, you know, in marking your script. And once the examiner is under pressure as well, there are so many factors. We are all human beings, right? So sometimes it is good to just make the work simple. When the examiner sets his eyes on your script, it makes it so easier for him, and it will benefit both parties. Now, another thing again, another point is that, sorry, 1 minute. Yeah, another point again that we need to understand is that when a question is 10 marks, when they write it 10 marks, it is expected that you need minimum of 10 points, okay? Now you can go ahead to make it 12, 13, 14. There's no negative marking, and it's not a crime if you go above that. But you must also be checking so that you don't write too much, okay? So like I've said, in the particular question that you find your strengths, just put as much points, okay? Because what the examiner is looking out for is what is in his marking scheme. Do you have it in your point? It will just mark and go like that. So if the question is 10 marks and you write up to 15 and it gets to the maximum mark, then you discover that that's another, is a very reasonable points which you can use, you know, because they will not say because they mark the 10th point, they will not mark the other ones. No, they will still look through it and check if there's any positive mark there. So it is advisable to just go a little bit above board. So also advise that you allocate approximately 1 hour, okay, for a 10-mark question. You know, you just need that sufficient time, you know, to be able to get the best out of it. And also you must also consider your word count. In your word count, it is expected to have about 1:35 in a 1 mark answer, not that you just write word accident or accident investigation and like that. So you need to just make it 1:35. There you'll be talking about maybe 2 lines or thereabout, to be able to attain this 1:35, approximately. So it is very good like that, because when you follow that trend and pattern, you discover that you meet up your 3,000 words. Okay. And also, however, it is not until you write much up to 30,000 words and 3,000 words rather, sorry. There are instances where people did not write up to 3,000 words and they pass very well. And you see some people who write above that basically will not do well. So it's not about the word. So there's a principle, regarding these words of a thing, just to be guided so that people don't write too much or too far above what will even stress the examiner. So all those things are just a guide, but at the same time, what is vital is the important points or terminologies you are using or what you are putting down, putting the right answers. Okay, so another thing you need to understand again is that it's advisable to have a font size between 11 and 12. The basic area, calibrate, Time New Roman, these are basic, this thing we always use in our CV. So it is good to use such also. Okay. And I will also advise people, okay, if you are going in for the exam, as for now and as of present, I don't think there's any artificial intelligence tools, that when you go there and ask a question, it will give you exactly what you want. Maybe if those words, those terminology you need will come out there. But otherwise, was at present, with the best of my knowledge, anyone you use is going to affect. So it is advisable not to use any ChatGPT, Grammarly, or whatever. It needs to correct some terminology. At the end of the day, you'll be using words or wrong, and the wrong words or wrong terminology for your answer, which you can never see in the marking scheme. So please, we need to take note of that. And we should not do what we call copy and paste. You just go to the internet, you copy and paste it. There is a software that detects plagiarism. Okay. So that is why no matter how it is, no matter how you write your exam, you will still see some level of percentage of plagiarism. But it is allowed. I believe NEBOSH has a tolerance very be accepted, to the best way that can fetch you marks, so that you are not caught in between the scenario of examination malpractice. Okay, and also ensure that each point you are bringing out from different source, there are evidence you can make reference to those things, right? So it is very important, because if they detect you for malpractice and you don't put your reference, it's going to give you some issues, regarding malpractice. So it's also ensure that you have this your answers you are putting down are evidence-based with reference to the scenario, because there are some questions that will come that your answer should be focused based on the scenario only. You are not expected to go outside and get anything else. It means the answer, what you need is in the scenario, except those ones that say you should support your answer with the scenario. So it means you can go out a little bit, focus on the scenario. And there are also some questions that will tell you, you will see that it has nothing to do with the scenario. So you have to go out and look for such also. Okay, so, and it is advisable during the writing of the exams, you might feel stressed, you might feel tired. It is very important to just take some break, stretch out your muscles. You can go for shower, you can take a deep breath, you can have snacks, you can just have some kind of meditation, you can laugh and dance within a few minutes and get your energy back, because when you stress yourself like that, a lot of hormones are being released in the body that will make you destabilized, So, but with little rest, refresh yourself, then you get more strength to continue. I think the fourth one now has to do with avoid emergencies. Yeah, these things, we might look at it as not important because we know, yes, for those of us in Qatar, probably in the Middle East, Europe, America, where we have stable electricity, we might not necessarily have issues that has to do with this. But I believe this webinar is not just focusing on people within the Middle East and all these countries I've mentioned, but at least there are some people in Africa, there are some countries that we know when we talk about electricity and all that, it's nothing to write home about. So those areas, this particular strategic point will be very, very important and vital, because if you could see, if you could have UPS to connect to your laptop, you need to make sure you have a good laptop battery, your mobiles are charged, all those things to have a kind of backup. Okay, maybe when you're typing, when you're writing like that, you can be sending it to your email, Google Drive, or your WhatsApp. Okay, in case there's a shutdown of power supply, so you can be able to save your answers. Because if you don't continue to back up those things, you don't save them. I'm telling you, maybe you are spent 10 hours or 12 hours into the examination, and all your answers, you lose them. I don't think you will be able to continue the exams anymore, because it will destabilize you completely. Then when we look at the fifth strategic point from my model, I've come up with what we call a must read, a closing interview. This is a requirement from NEBOSH, okay? If you don't attend closing interview, forget whatever you have written. Your result will not be released. It will just be concluded that somebody wrote the exam for you. You could not face them for the interview. That is it. I have a friend that ran to me. He did his exam, I think, in January. And though he attended his interview, but even to satisfy, because now what NEBOSH is doing is like when the centers are conducting, that will join this interview to check for quality, I think quality assurance and things like that. So because they are trying to check a lot of things that are going on, because in book, a lot of people have criticized the method of examination, that, a lot of people are writing for other people, things like that. So, and NEBOSH is trying every possible means, to debunk it, to make people understand that this is the best, one of the best way. Even before NEBOSH introducing this, a lot of examinations body around the globe have, even some universities they do this open book examination. When you go for your master's program and all that, you see it's based on open book. So it's just that some set of people have been abusing it. So one of the way for you to justify that you did your exam is to attend the closing interview. It's not a difficult process. They cannot spend more than 5, maximum 10 minutes with you. They just want to see that confidentiality in you, that yes, you did this exam yourself. Not that they will start asking you to give all what you've put in down in your answer script. So I think with this, I would just like to throw the floor open to other of my colleagues who are on this webinar to give 1 or 2 contributions. Thank you very much. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, Sir Francis, thank you very much for that elaborate discussion. We really appreciate your expertise. And I want to recognize other professionals here. Olufemi is here. Andrew is here. David is also here. So you have said it all, but we have to emphasize on some issues that people think that are not so important. One of the points if you look at your answer sheet towards the end of that, your answer sheet in NEBOSH open book examination, you will see reference. So what is what is required is you should enter the website page where you got some information from, or you should enter the name of the textbook that you got some information from, because you cannot, it's not 100% accurate that you got all the information from your head. So you must have consulted some textbooks or some websites. So it's okay, just mention the name of the website and the textbooks where you consulted. Is required. Now, what is the reason for this? The reason is your NEBOSH Open Book examination will pass through a software that will detect pragmatism. Mr. Stephen has mentioned this, but there are certain percentage of pragmatism that is allowed. So if your own exceeds the limit that NEBOSH allows, then your answer sheet will be flagged. It will be assumed that you copied, and then you will be sent an email asking you to explain, trying to justify why you should not be banned or why you should not be penalized. So in that scenario, you will require those references that you have entered in your answer sheet. That will be your justification. So if you've not entered references, you cannot justify why you will not be penalized. So it's very, very important. Do not forget that. Then the next thing I need to talk about is the word limit. The word limit is set as 3,000. You can write, but believe you me, 3,000 is more than enough for you to pass NEBOSH Open Book examination. So if you write more than 3,000, I can just imagine what exactly you have written. So 3,000 is quite enough. So do not, it's not a textbook. You are not writing a additional textbook for NEBOSH. You are only giving answers. So you have to stay within that limit. Stay within the limit. If you write less than 3,000 and you've covered your point, that's fine. You must not write up to 3,000. If you've covered your point within 2,000, 2,500 words, that's fine. Submit like that, you will pass if you've provided the required valid points. Now, another point I want to reiterate is, in each of the questions, there is an allocated mark for them. There's an allocated mark for each question. For example, question number 1 might say 10 marks. That 10 marks, what it simply means is 10 valid points. If you write only 5 points, and within the 5 points you have written, you are not sure if 5 of them are all correct, or if 5 of them are valid within the marking scheme. So you will lose marks. So what we suggest, or what we advise you to do, is write more than 10. Write 12, 13, 14, 15. That's fine. Write as many points as possible. The examiner would go through them and give you your marks. And you might end up getting the total marks. You might end up scoring 10 over 10. So do not limit the number of points you provide while writing your exam. So the other point I want to talk about, Mr. Stephen has said it over and over again. You need to focus on the terminologies. Remember, you are writing health and safety examination. Focus on terminologies. ChatGPT and other AI tools is going to deceive a lot of people. Going forward, many people will fail this NEBOSH Open Book examination because of ChatGPT. Because one, you want to hide away from the pragmatism. When you have copied from your friend and you go to ChatGPT or other AI tools to rephrase them. When you have rephrased it, one, you have succeeded in dodging the pragmatism penalty, but you have entered in more difficult situation, which simply means all the valid terminologies that was used from where you copied from has been wiped out by the AI tools in trying to rephrase those sentences. So at the end, you'll find out that you have written something different from health and safety. You have used words that are totally different from health and safety terminologies. And the examiner will not be able to award you marks because the words that you have used cannot be found in the marking scheme. So this is very, very important. Stay away from ChatGPT, stay away from AI rephrasing tools if you are writing NEBOSH open book examination. We cannot say this enough. It's very, very important you know this. Now, we have said enough, and Femi, are you there now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Let me give you the opportunity to contribute. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. I greet especially all the co-professionals and everybody on board today. My name is Olufemi Ayokunle Ajayi. I'm opportune as well to be a chartered member of IOSH, and I would say it's a grace, and it's really what everybody should, how will I say it, try and work towards getting also, which is it's a good privilege. So regarding the topic about OBE, I salute Mr. Johnson for bringing us back again, because we did it some weeks back. And I hope we were able to gain one or two things while we are discussing this. So also, I would say how people are approaching the exams, it's I think it's not the way it should be approached. Open book exams, far back, we all know that it's like a trap. So you just like, oh, it's open book and just copy out. No. We think it's easy, but it's easy. But with NEBOSH bringing this OBE, it makes it easier. I would say one thing, it's like a slang from my country, Nigeria, where I come from. They will say what you are going to look for in Sokoto State is in your pocket. So everything we need to succeed in that exam, it's inside the paragraph, the scenario that was given to us. You don't have to, if you want to add your own English, it's fine. If you want to explain more, perfect, if you have the time, if you wish. But everything you need, it's inside that scenario. So the thing, and understanding the question when the people are being asked, okay, what is this interpretation? Because once you misinterpreted the question, certainly you are going to miss that point. Because, for example, when you are being asked to, it's different when we are doing book one, that class-based, when they ask to explain. In open book, they will hardly ask you to explain something. Even if they argue, they will just, according to the scenario, you will find it at the bottom of each question. According to the scenario, give this. So they don't want you to go and, is it chat GPT? I don't know how to pronounce it. Or you go to Google. If you want to go to, it's fine to go to Google to add to your points you've made. But copying everything, then go to paraphrase, The plagiarism you check is fine, nobody 100% perfect. Then you put it. Examiner has his own, like my previous guest said. Examiner has the marking scheme. Is marking according to the scheme. By the time maybe somebody copy the original answer from the scenario and pass it to you, you paraphrase it, it's giving different meaning. So by the time it gets down to the examiner, it will just be reading and reading and be like, what is this guy trying to say? And he's not finding it there, and that's it. So I would say it's better to carefully read the question and understand what you're asked to do, like I said earlier. And while giving your answers, while giving it, ensure or try you can make it a bullet point or 1, 2, 3 or ABC or Roman, anyhow you want to. Don't write it in form of essay, and the examiner will be like going from one lane to other. If you if you are asked to, like Mr. Johnson said earlier, to your first number, question 1 is 10 points. That means 10 marks. That means you need 10, at least 12 points to have all your marks. It's possible. You can have 10 over 10, 100% is possible. Once you're able to understand the question and you give your points, bullet it, then 1, 2, 3. Even if you want to explain more, make a space. So it will be easier for the examiner to, oh, this is what you are saying. It will just easily he can mark, and it will not be a stress for him when he's marking. Then he will be able to understand the points you are making in that particular question. Then the answer, they're always in the scenario, like I said, in the scenario passage. Don't write, don't assume, don't paraphrase, don't go to synonym words for, no. Write it as it is. That is what the examiner is looking for whenever he's marking your script. Or he's looking for the first aid is behind the first aid room. Don't paraphrase it. As is seen in the scenario, just put it like that in your answer. Lifting answer is allowed. Paraphrasing, it will just be like you are just wasting your time. And when you, like Mr. Johnson said and the previous speaker, you can reference, yes. You can reference, copy the link, put it there. According to this is what, it's allowed. Because then they are not expecting you to have everything offhand and just pour it down like that. Then never be in a rush to submit. I said it last time. We can, if you are given a 24 hours to complete your question and submit your answer booklet, write it. You can go over it again. Maybe you need to add some additional point, or maybe first time you answer the question, you just did it. Then when you are revising it again, oh, I misinterpreted this question, I need to go over it again. Because the way the exams is being designed now, it's not the class-based that we had then. Because now the type of question they will be asking you, it's actually not, it's not straightforward. They will write, what are the elements of a risk assessment? What are the elements of a hierarchy of, you hardly find that in OBE. I'm sure it's not really common, because it won't be like that in this scenario. So, but we are understanding the question, why, I mean, before you submit, don't be like, oh, I want to submit earlier, 5 hours. You can submit 10 minutes before, you can submit 15 minutes before the time. Just make sure you submit on time. Don't delay your submission. And I will say you make sure you write your desired required word, which is maximum 3,000 words. You can have less than, you can have exact 3,000. Even you can have, like Mr. Johnson said, you can have 2,200 words, and you will have your 75, 80. It's possible, or even more than. I've seen people that they wrote, yes, some people, they'll be writing 300 and 3,800 words, and they will even have what. So understanding the question and targeting your desired or expected words, it goes a long way. Do not copy answers from the internet, please. The answers are there. If you type anything on the Google or ChatGPT, it will give you solution. But don't just bring it from there and start. The answer to the question you are asked is inside this scenario-based question. So the marks awarded to your question will surely determine the number of points required to be provided. Like I said, it's 10 points, is 10 marks, then it will be 10 points. If it's 20, it will be 20 marks, it will be 20 points, but you can write more than. So the difference between OB and classroom exams, I know everybody knows that already. It's different, and I said it the last time. NEBOSH is really having fun with this OB, and I don't see them reversing or going back to the class very soon. So please visit an approved center if you want to write your exam, get registered, go to classes. Maybe they will do online 10 days, 12 days, I don't know, depending. Then you'll be able to follow this. Sincerely, there's no any miracle. There's no any miracle. The thing is, then you are given a lot of book. Johnson, when you wrote your IGC, how many books were you given? IGC 1 separate, IGC 2 separate. As a big books. We'll read and read and read and read. But now it's just, they'll just give you slides. It has been simplified so that they'll just give you, okay, this and this and this. Even then, you won't be given AOC or AOB, area of concentration. And we have to read like maybe 10, 15 chapters for IGC 1. I said it the other time, I think me and Joyce, when we had I failed my IGC 2 twice. I failed it twice. So it's the third time when I registered, I was like, no, I'm not writing again. I have to make them call, request for remark. And that was when my mark increased, then I was funded. So it helps my when I go to site, because IGC is most practical, yeah. So it helps me a lot when I'm implementing on site. So daily, as in get registered in a accredited center, they would guide you right. Even the work we are even doing here, it's even more than helpful, to be honest. If I as a person had this opportunity then I wouldn't have failed my IGC2 twice. I'm not ashamed of it. I failed twice. So, but it's a story now that I share with people. So I wish my co-colleagues and other professionals all the best. And I appreciate the work being done by Mr. Johnson, Safeoclock coordinator. We need more topics to talk and trash on in the nearest future. So thank you, and I hope I'll be able to talk some things to people that are in need of it. Thank you very much. I yield back to Mr. Johnson now.
Thank you, Mr. Femi. We sincerely appreciate your time and giving us your expertise in this topic. Going forward, we'll be having these discussions weekly, and we are already having testimonies. People are already testifying what they have learned a lot. The last topic, when we discussed about heat stress, I got lots of positive feedbacks. Some people that are new in Qatar, that they learned a lot on how to manage themselves during the summer season. So I believe what we are doing here is yielding fruit. We are not just wasting our time. We are giving back to the community. We've paid a lot. We sacrificed to learn whatever we are teaching people now, but we are giving back to the community. That is part of life. You cannot have it all and die with them. So you need to give out some things you have learned to people. So, and everything, it does not end in money. Sometimes we do free charity work. So whatever we are doing now, the reward awaits us. So I appreciate you, Femi. I appreciate you, Stephen, for your time. I appreciate everybody that is making our time to ensure that we propagate the gospel of safety, because safety is everywhere. It's not just a workplace, safety in the house, safety everywhere. Next week, we'll be talking about stress management. Next week, Thursday, we'll be talking about stress management. And thankfully, we are having professionals that will be coming to speak to us. Some in medical fields, coaches, and psychologists that will be talking to us about stress management in homes, at work, at different aspects. So find time to join us at 6 p.m. Thursday next week, also 1st of June. Okay, I'll give back to Stephen, Mr. Stephen, to contribute more.
Okay, yes. Yeah, thank you very much. Just like Mr. Femi and Mr. Johnson have said, the truth is that many of us have experience. We are now experts in the field with much study, with much of field experience. Okay, so many of us have written this. We never wrote the exam one time and pass. That is the truth, because even with somebody who have a master's degree, he can sit for a NEBOSH exam and fail woefully. That is the secret, you know. So that is one side. Then for that of Mr. Johnson, when we talk about health and safety, really is a profession that has to do with service to humanity. You know, that is why when you look at IOS, look at NEBOSH, they will tell you it's a charitable organization or something like that. So it's more about caring about people. In the first place, what are we doing in the site as a safety professional? We are there to ensure that people are working safely and for them to go home safely without injuries and all that. At the expert, at the maybe more managerial level, we're talking about designing policies that will help people to go home safely and to also save the organization in terms of financial aspect. So now, but there's one particular point I want to focus on, you know, which has not really been dealt with. You know, when it comes to handling questions, you know, I'll be speaking based on experience. You know, sometimes when I get some people coming to me for counsel and all that, I see a lot of people making mistakes as well. Okay. Now, I want to focus, for example, you see, based on the feedback from examiners, you see that sometimes when the NEBOSH set question, they will emphasize on certain things because people make mistakes. Now, I will take an example. There's a question that the board normally asks. They will say, you know, there's a difference between the topic where they are picking the question of the scenario and the question itself. Now, for example, they will tell you health and safety management roles and responsibility. It's like a topic, is a task. You understand? Then there's always a question. For example, they now said, comment on the effectiveness of the role and responsibility in relation to health and safety management in the organization. Now, this is what you will not take to the scenario after you study the scenario. But now there's something the boss said. They said, note, you should focus your answer on roles and responsibility and not on health and safety management system and legal duties. Most people, most students, they mix it up with health and safety management system. They also go forward to even mix it up with the legal duties. You know, there's a legal duties that are placed upon employer, okay, even upon workers by the ILO convention and recommendations, okay? Now, that is where most people are getting it wrong. You see, NEBOSH is even making an effort to give you a landing, a soft landing, so that you don't miss out of your point. But you see, even with this information, some people will go ahead, they will go and write the legal duties of an employer or an employee. You know, so it is very, very important because here you will just be needing your basic health and safety knowledge, what management is supposed to do, what managers are supposed to do, and what workers are supposed to do in that scenario, with what has happened in that scenario. What are they supposed to do? But definitely, when you look at these functions, they will overlap also with the legal with the legal duties or whatever. But the mistake is that when you go and lift what is in the legal duties and responsibility, you might not get sufficient points. Because if you go to all those places, you see maybe they just have 1 or 2 or 5 points, and the scenario question is telling you to write 10 points. So where do you get this thing from? Okay, so but on looking at, when you look at the scenario, you begin to bring them one after the other. Okay, from this scenario that I've observed, what has happened? They would have talked about something that, okay, they've not given sufficient training, that they've not supervised the workers properly, you know, that management has not made commitment, you know, no monitoring, a lot of things, all these points. These words I've been using are the technical words that are being used. You cannot run away from these words. You must have them stick into the brain, because you see them in the scenario, you have to give it back to them the same way. Okay. Now there's another question that says improving verbal is like a task. Not the main question per se. It comes this way: improving verbal communication, maybe in the organization, for example. And I will tell you, when they say communication, because you have different types of communication, means of communicating. You communicate verbally, you can communicate through written form and all that. But in some cases, you see some students, they will miss out. You need to understand the question, understand the task, the task topic. Let me not say question, is a task topic, then the question itself. Now, in this task, they say improving verbal communication, maybe in a particular organization. Now, the question under this task, which is talking about improving verbal communication, they now say, based on the scenario only, give example of how verbal communication between all workers at the organization could be improved. It is as simple as that. They go straight to the point to tell you verbal. But in most cases, you see people, what they are putting down, they are putting all ways you could communicate. They will be putting how you can improve written communication, how you can improve other forms of communication. There you discover that you might write 15 points, and what you get will be 1 mark or 2 marks. Because that 1 mark or 2 marks, you have just written only 1 or 2 points on verbal communication, while others are spreading across other means of communication. At that point, that person has failed woefully, because those people at the end of the day will say, I wrote these things, I wrote this, things like that. So there are many. I believe what I'm trying to explain should be something of a session on its own. Okay, there we are not going to be talking about strategies anymore. We will just be focusing on past questions, how to handle those things. I think if we have subsequently, we should be able to create a session where we'll deal with questions. Okay, we'll go through the scenario, then we'll start dealing with those questions one after the other. I think that will go a great way, go a long way to really help people. Okay, and another thing I also observe again is that there's a popular question that normally comes up. They will say employer roles and responsibility in the workplace. Now they will be telling you to make reference to ILO convention. Now all these things are now the legal responsibility. Now what some people try to do is that they go to the internet, they will copy what the ILO convention has said. If the ILO convention say that employer must provide safe place of work or safe method of work, they will go there and copy it exactly and put as an answer. When you do it, you are failing. Because the question will be asked, how has the employer contravened this article or this convention? Okay, now this thing is a simple English. You have to come back and look at the scenario and look at this convention that has been set for employer to follow. Did the employer meet this point number 1? No. Then you have to come and tell them that based on the scenario, the employer has contravened article blah, 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 like this, section this and that. We state that employer must provide safe system of work. And based on the scenario, they are unable to provide safe system of work. They are unable to provide safe plant and equipment, things like that. They are unable to carry out supervision, monitoring, and all that. So you need to be telling the examiner that they have not provided this thing. They've not provided supervision. Because if you go and copy directly from the internet and put all the responsibility that the employer must do, what it will be saying there, it will be giving a direct statement that supervision, provide supervision. And in the scenario, they did not provide supervision. So you see that if you have not written it in a way that will end you mark, you can never get mark. Because in the NEBOSH marking scheme, the answer might come, might say, there was no supervision, okay, from the organization or from the company. There was no supervision of workers in the site. And you are copying employer must supervise. So there are two different things. So these are some salient areas where people fail. People write a lot, but they are missing out from the question. I believe because we need to have a session of understanding OB question and putting down the right answers. So I just try to pick one or two, three example, from expert advice, expert knowledge to share with us. So I believe subsequently when we have time to be able to deep it into an in-depth level, we'll be glad to do that. I think that's what I have to say, Mr. Johnson. If anybody has anything more light to pour on what I've just said, I think that will also be relevant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stephen. You have done more than enough. We are going to create a session where we treat a particular month OBU examination. So I believe it's not in contravention with the NEBOSH policy. Is the questions are out there with the candidates, so we can highlight the questions and give some suggested answers. So in subsequent sessions, we are going to put up past questions and we are going to treat them. So if there's someone there that has a question, you can raise up your hand to ask the question, or you can type the question in the comment box so that we'll treat the question. If there is no question, we'll be ending the session in 2 minutes. If you have any question, tie up, David. If you have any question, you have any comment, you can let us know.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Actually, I don't have any questions. I really quite appreciate most of the speakers here. They've actually touched on very essential and important points, beginning from you who emphasized more on the reference, which is a source where vital information that supports the source of answers provided is also a valid point. The last speaker really just hit the nail on the head. In fact, from the example he gave, it is really quite elaborate, and that is how to approach the NEBOSH exam. I believe I've gone through, because during my time, it was the classroom exam we took, the IGC 1, 2, 3. So, but again, I've had a review on the OBE, and I really see that, like you guys have pointed out, all the answers are embedded in the passage, on the passage. And of course, they will give a clear instruction whether they want you to stick to the passage to collect or to pick out all your answers, or you might, if they want you to still refer to a source for additional or supporting answers, they will also state it there in the instruction. So sometimes they will just say, make sure or ensure that all the answers are gotten from the passage. While in some other case, they will still tell you, get your answers and also support from, I think, and also source your answers from other sources, from other reference. So it's quite an interesting session so far, though I joined very late. but I really, really appreciate. I decided to be part of it. I just came across it and I said, okay, let me refresh my brain. Let me refresh my memory, because actually this knowledge is not for me, but also I could learn one or two and also use it to affect others positively in my place of work. Maybe I come across any of my colleagues or anyone who wants to sit for the open book exam, because I usually come across a lot of them. I could also share some of the ideas I've learned from here with them, and I believe that will also help them to come out successful in the exam. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. David. We appreciate your time, and I am sure some people here also are not writing the exam. They are attending to refresh their knowledge and also to be able to teach others. So we are all those in the field. We are passionate about health and safety. We want to improve ourselves. We want to do things that will help us to improve the workplace. That is a passion in health and safety field. You see, like, people that study different courses, but when they enter the health and safety field, they become so passionate about saving lives. They become so passionate about doing things to keep the workplace safe. So that is why there's a slogan that says safety practitioners, they know everything. They're almost in all the professions. They act like paramedics, they act like firefighters, they act like first aiders. They try to do everything to keep people safe. So we appreciate your time. We appreciate your efforts in keeping your workplace safe and improving your knowledge as well. Mr. Tayeb, are you there? If you have something to say, you can say now. We are rounding off the session. We'll stay past 1 hour. I don't want to keep us too long, so that's why we'll set it to 1 hour. Okay, in absence of other questions, we are going to end the session now. So I appreciate everyone who has attended this session. Mr. Steven, Mr. Olfemi, Mr. Tayab, David, and all others who are watching from Facebook and other platforms. So we appreciate you for coming. Thank you for taking our time to participate in this session. And all health and safety professionals, we appreciate your efforts in keeping the workplace safe. We appreciate your effort in keeping the mommies and daddies safe, because the children at home needs them healthy. So thank you for all the jobs you do in keeping the workplace safe and in keeping the parents safe also. So until next time, next Thursday by 6 p.m., we have another session, stress management. We'll be talking about both workplace stress, home stress, and other stressors. We have a team of speakers from medical fields. We have speakers from education. We have psychologists that they will be talking to us next week, Thursday from 6 p.m. And do well to follow our social media handles, Safeoclock, in Facebook, in Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, so you'll get notifications when we go live. Okay, we appreciate you all. Thank you, and see you next week.
Thank you, and bye to all.
All right, thanks, Mr. Safeoclock.
Thank you, Femi. Thank you, sir.
All right, bro. Yeah, cheers, bro.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah.